special guest flew in from New York, and he's a serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Blue Liner Marketing, an interactive marketing and web development agency. He's about to release his book on the 7 pillars of digital marketing, and is here to reveal those 7 to us right now. Welcome, Arman.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing?
Good.
Great. All right. So wait a minute for this presentation. So yeah, I did actually just flew in from Las Vegas this morning. Our agency is based in New York. We have offices in several countries, including India, Macedonia, and also Bangladesh. So it's a 24/7 operation, full service, digital marketing, design, and what you'll see here in terms of the 7 pillars in about a minute. You got it. All right. So I would define myself as more of a serial entrepreneur than a marketer, although I've been running this agency for about 15 years now. How I got started was right out of college in about 1995, 96. Didn't want to go the route of joining a big corporate machine and just being another cog in the wheel, so to speak. But that was my perspective back then. I had a lot more respect for a large operation than now. Even 20 years of experience and what it takes to build such an enterprise. But what always excited me was startups and really getting something built, created off the ground, working on ideas and taking something that doesn't exist and bringing it to market. So started, built, and sold several companies. And through that process, in about 2001, when one of the ventures that we were working on started getting a little bit tight on capital, I'm sure this story may sound familiar to you, especially in this market with all the startup activity. What do you do when you run low on capital and you have a great team and you want to keep people together is you start doing some consulting. You take your designer, you take your developers, and you talk to other people you know, or sometimes they approach you, hey, can you help me with my website? You guys built some great brands, can you help us with designing a new logo, and so on and so forth. So what actually started out as just really a cash flow strategy to support startup activity, we found out we do a pretty good job, sitting on the other side of the table when you don't have all that pressure. And what can sometimes happen to entrepreneurs is a little bit of tunnel vision, so to speak. You've got just all your emotional energy in that basket, and it's nice to have someone on the other side of the table that can understands your position, that can be a little bit objective with you and give you some direction. So hence Blue Liner was born, not out of pure intention, but really out of necessity. And since that time, we've grown the company quite nicely. We're part of actually a larger holding company called 9.8 Group, based in New York. There's over 200 employees between all the holding companies and a bunch of different industries and niches that we service. So I love working with entrepreneurs, even though we have some bigger clients and brands as well. My favorite thing is to sit down with an entrepreneur that has an idea or a small company that's doing okay, but is looking to take things to another level. And in order to do that effectively, it starts with planning and strategy, an assessment of where you stand in the marketplace. And so I started developing this framework called the 7 pillars, which will be our main topic today. And I'm going to keep it very high level. We have about 20 minutes, so I'm going to describe the framework. It's a complete system, and yet it's continuing to evolve. The industries that we're in here are changing so fast. And that's why we developed the system, because I needed a way to explain to clients how we needed to approach different segments, how branding was going to work with the website. The conversation that just took place on the stage here today about how you integrate social search and all the other tactics that continue to, and the platforms as well. It's kind of mind-blowing as far as how much we have to keep up with. So I developed the 7 pillars model, trained it within our company and used it as a framework to explain to clients how we're going to basically allocate the budgets, how we're going to measure and analyze results, and so on. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the pillars and explain. Hopefully, this thing works. So this is what the 7 pillars is really at the highest level. It's a framework, it's a system and a methodology for all things related to, I used to say digital marketing, and we still do, call it the 7 pillars of digital, but it's really beyond that, because digital marketing is an evolution and a part of the, obviously, technology revolution has opened up channels for digital, but we really have to respect and understand the whole history of marketing. Aaron was just talking about the importance of branding. That's a core concept, age-old concept in traditional marketing, as is, advertising and content is king and all those things that old school agencies pioneered. I think the era is over where digital marketing has to fight for its respect and the budget. Everyone knows that all things are integrated, all things are digital now. But we have to be careful not to let the pendulum swing too much that we forget about the roots of marketing and the traditional principles. So the framework really applies to everything. So there are 7 pillars. I'll show you what those are. But before we do, there are other components to the framework here. We have these 7 core principles. You'll hear the number 7 a lot. Not everything is broken down by 7, but the principles are listed here. Time management is something that I think often gets lost in the conversation about what it's going to take to get things done. If you ask your designer how long it's going to take to build that new web page or landing page, oftentimes they can't answer that question. So the art of estimating and having enough experience to understand the different personalities within the company and how long it takes different people to get things done is something that I'd like to, in my experience running an agency, have had to bring to people's attention. Because clients want everything, right? And they think it's going to take 2 minutes to get things done, but we all know, or those of us that are practitioners out here, it's not quite so simple. So effective time management, 7 pillars model is also very big on efficiency when it comes to time. So in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of having too many meetings, in terms of creating layers and layers of account teams and structure and reporting, I just opt to try to cut that down as much as possible. Create really tight-knit teams, smaller teams, agile, as you can see, workflow is one of the principles. And I'm not going to go through every one because we just don't have time, but I think that the holistic aspect is extremely important there in terms of integration, and not just putting tactics in silos and trying to measure them. We talked about attribution earlier, and I know at the workshops later today, some of the speakers will go a lot deeper into attribution, which is a very important principle. And at the same time, we have to make sure we understand that even when we do attribution, we can't completely segment things. Everything ultimately works together, including digital and traditional. So I'll leave that here for now on the principles, so we can go into the actual pillars. So here behind me, you can see what the 7 pillars are. And our system's kind of argument or position is that anything and everything within the entire sphere of digital marketing that we can talk about, every tactic, every idea, every technique, would fall under one of these 7 areas. And all these are actually listed on the site, 7pillarsdigital.com as well. And of course, we'll share a presentation and follow-up. So this is the highest level of the model. It's the first dimension. Everything falls under there. And then from this point, the model has 6 other dimensions. So of course, there's also 7 dimensions, the pillars being really the first and highest level of those. And this has evolved. When this model started in 2004, it was the 6 pillars. Because back in 2004, people weren't really talking about social media. Even though social media existed, we didn't really use that terminology as regularly. Mobile wasn't really what it is today, although it was being, again, talked about. So the model has actually evolved. I do believe that we're at the point where these pillars will be all-encompassing for a while, unless some new innovation, space travel or something, holograms or whatnot, something even more high-tech than what's happening with mobile today. And it might, and if it does and it deserves its own category, we'll consider it at that time. So from here, what I'd like to say is our goal with this model is actually to have this be a contribution into the industry. Although as an agency, we practice these principles and everything I'm explaining here into how we do budgeting and ROI and auditing of different campaigns and companies. This is something we're looking to really contribute into the industry as kind of a framework and a tool set that you as individual marketers, agencies, and others can adopt and practice. And so we can all make sure we're talking the same language, and even when it comes to clients, giving them the education so that they know for their brands that we're all talking about the same general areas. So that's part of our purpose of really putting this outbound, whereas for the last 10, 12 years, this has been more of an internal thing that we've really built up and utilized at Blueliner. At this point, 7 Pillars is really separating from Blueliner, of course, when the agency practices it, but we hope others will, and they actually have started to adopt the model. So again, talking about traditional marketing, these are the 7 core principles or pillars of traditional. The way we see it, we put sales in that bucket as well. Traditional pillar 5, sometimes sales and marketing sits on opposite sides of the fence and has to find a way to work together. The way I see it, sales is an integral part of the marketing process, whether it's customer service or whether you have, you're at a trade show. I just came from a trade show with one of our clients, and we won a couple of awards for having the best point-of-sale merchandising displays. It really engages consumers in the store. So that's sales isn't just all about getting on the phone, it's having your silent sales tools and aids. 2 of the pillars here in traditional, number 1 and number 3, are almost a perfect parallel and just a different side of the spectrum from what we see on the digital side. So when you're creating a content strategy, that's going to have applications in both traditional and digital. And although those applications are different, when we bring all the pillars together from traditional and digital, we don't end up getting 14. So you get 7 plus 7, but we boil that down to 12 because content and advertising becomes one bigger bucket. Where we have traditional on one end of the spectrum, digital on the other. PR, ever important, and obviously that has a parallel on the online side in terms of social media and online PR. And then direct marketing, which is another very effective strategy. Again, with the trade show that I just came from with one of our clients, sending out these little postcards before the show to targeted attendees to let them know that we have this innovation and we're at this booth was even more effective than the emails. Emails are a very effective strategy. This just goes to the point not to forget and neglect that for some brands, traditional tactics and getting face-to-face with potential customers could be even more effective or a great complement to what we're doing on the digital side. Okay, the dimensions. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because we'll be here for an hour. I probably have about 10 more minutes. So we talked about the pillars. We're going to get into probably the first 4 dimensions here, and that's as deep as we can go. But as a high-level overview, the modes is where we start really organizing campaigns and have specific stages of the marketing process. So again, all of these dimensions apply to the full spectrum of marketing. And we'll get into the modes shortly. The levels entail the level of skill, the level of expertise, and we've actually developed an app that's releasing this week. I wanted to have it ready for today, And I'm going to be yelling at some developers a little bit later because it wasn't up in time, but it might be up later today, and I'll send you guys a follow-up link for anyone that's interested. But it's a free app that essentially allows you to assess yourself. So there's all types of certifications coming up in our industry, and great training that Wally and the team are doing here, that Aaron and OMI are doing, and there's others out there as well. There's Google AdWords and different certifications. That's all fantastic. You take a test, you do some learning, and you get a certain certification. In our model, that's part of what helps improve your proficiency. But there's other factors as well. There's a self-assessment, there's an assessment from managers, from peers, and then there's the results of what you do with that knowledge. And that's it's very hard to get that information, but if all of us are honest about where we really stand in different aspects of this model, it'll be better for our career development to know where we stand. And we use, like Six Sigma, we use that karate dojo analogy you see in a lot of our icons as far as the belts. And so as you progress, and you have mentors, people at higher levels that can help you progress and verify when you move to another level, you can also set goals along that track. So here are the modes: brainstorming, discovery, ideation. It's really the broadest stage when we get together. Even part of the sales process happens here when we're sitting with clients, as I mentioned, with entrepreneurs, and you're just throwing ideas at the wall. Or you're asking questions. It's discovery, it's research. The second mode is ROI, planning, budgeting, goal setting. Those things really go hand in hand. You don't just, in my view, set a budget without having corresponding goals, and vice versa. Those things really have to go hand in hand. So I won't go through all of this because I want to show you guys some of the visuals. I know it's a lot of information so far. And one thing we have with the app, the self-assessment app that we're putting out, is as you answer the questions about your goals and where you're strong and your work preferences, we would have an algorithm that tells you what's your marketing personality type. And again, we've created 7 general types here. Not that there's not more or different language we can use to describe these different marketing personalities, but as you're building a team, if you're a manager or you're a startup company doing hiring, it's very important not just to see what skill level people are at, but to see what their working preferences are. Some people like to interact a lot. Some people are more reclusive and just like to get their assignment and work on their own. And if you have too many idea men or women in the room, but not enough doers, or information gatherers, do research, or people that can crunch numbers, or people that can go out and be like more of a hunter, more of a sales type oriented person that can give presentations. It could really, although on paper, and a good analogy for this is sports. You get an all-star team of people that are all highly skilled, but something's wrong in the chemistry. That's usually because of a scenario like this, where someone didn't understand, how to create balance in the team and not have too many strong personalities, so to speak. People that need to speak up and have the floor in every meeting. So these are some of the nuances that go beyond pure skills and test taking and things of that nature. And this is something that it's good for us all as individuals to try to identify. What is my marketing personality type? It's not necessary that you're just one type. There could be a primary type, and there'll be more of like percentages of primary, secondary, and things of that nature. Okay, so what we do in the matrix, so we have this concept called the 49er matrix, and I promise I didn't name that just because we're in San Francisco here. I'm not a 49ers fan, but the 49er matrix was a concept created because we had these 7. So we have 7 pillars across the top and 7 modes across the side. And what we do with this matrix is actually, it's multifold. We can put this matrix up with a client, with our team, and let me actually show you an example Okay, so here's an example of the matrix, and this is active stuff that we do in practice with our clients, and we say, how are we doing? How are we doing on who's handling content strategy? Who's in charge of that? Who's in charge of mobile analytics? Stage 7, so that'll be the bottom of this matrix. And if we don't have those questions or no one knows who's in charge of that, then this kind of visualization gives us the ability to create either a better team or do a more honest audit. And then so we'll do something like this, where we'll put obviously red for, hey, there's a problem here, whoever's handling it, it's not going that well, yellow, green, or gray purely. Can't really see the gray, but gray would be for, we're just not even addressing that. Try. So the matrix has multiple uses, and some of the apps we're building are going to allow you to do multiple things, including just having goals, personal goals across different areas for yourself. And the self-assessment app actually will map out where you stand in your self-assessment within this whole matrix. You can't be, none of us can be great at everything in here. We might be an SEO specialist, but if we don't pay attention to how that corresponds to mobile and social content, we're going to be a little bit over-siloed. Okay, so moving on from there, I'm going to just breeze through this. There's different things you can do with the matrix. You can map out those first 2 dimensions, modes and pillars. You can map out you can keep the pillars across the top, and then you could bring another component here called angles. And the angles, I think, will be better represented through, these are the belts, by the way. These are the levels, starting from the white belt, novice, to, we actually put blue on top of black. So black is like level 6, like expert level. And we put blue on top as kind of an ode to our company, Blue Liner. So the blue line is actually, from a branding standpoint, like that top bar, or top goal of mastery. And in our book, the people that are blue belts are the people that are, the entrepreneurs that we talk about and see in newspapers, and Zuckerbergs and Google founders and those guys. So blue belt isn't like a bunch of tests you take and say, hey, I'm a blue belt. These things are not given away easily. So we're creating a structure where there'll be that hierarchy of, honorary, top level folks, and then down the list from there. So we describe what is really entailed, what it takes to achieve each different level across each different track: social, search, so on and so forth. So of course, just as in a karate dojo, there's a subjective element of it. Some dojos have senseis that promote people left and right, and others, myself, I practice karate. I've been doing it for 10 years, and I'm still not a black belt. One notch under, brown with a black tip. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. It's a tougher dojo to progress. You have to go to tournaments and actually perform. So it's not just what you do in the dojo, it's what happens when you go out and mix out there with others. And that's basically the same principle here. We can tell ourselves, whatever we want in our self-assessment, but when you go out and actually have to execute a campaign, that's when your real level shows. So I'll do one more visual and then I'll wrap it up. So this is the it's a top view of a pyramid. Okay, so we have this concept called the pyramids of knowledge, and obviously the blue, the top level, there's going to be less number of people. So you have people coming in from all these different angles. You're coming in from you're a designer. You're coming into marketing from a creative and graphical angle. But as we know, designers need to understand the importance of SEO and social and user experience. But they're coming at it from a design angle. That's their core kind of MO. Versus someone that's more of a pure lead generator, copywriter, marketer. There's a technical angle. So there's 4 major angles: marketing, technical, creative, and research. And then there's 4 what we call minor angles. Not because they're less important, but because they're a little bit more exclusive. And the minor angles are finance, financial, venture, So if you're actually, like Sprout Social and people that are starting ventures, that they're on that track. That's where Angle is, or Maz, some speakers that have been here already today. These folks are coming at their areas from the angle of a venture and really trying to change the whole game here, create a platform that we'll all be trying to figure out how to use and optimize. There's the legal angle, which also ties into regulatory issues, political issues, things of that nature. Then there's overall management. Some people are just on that management track where they don't necessarily perfect any of the other angles, but they're the organizers of campaigns. So as we go up the ranks here, it gets more narrow. Here's another view, which is a little more colorful and infographic-like, and you can see the different ninjas there, kind of climbing the ladder from beginner level all the way to the top of the pyramid of knowledge there. So this is a bit of an overview. There's not much more. If you guys want to download the ebook, there you can go on and register at 7pillarsdigital.com. Fill out that quick application. You'll get 15-20 pages of the ebook right away. And then after you take the self-assessment, which takes about 10-15 minutes, someone would send you the full ebook, which is actually about 150, 160 pages of PDF. So I'm going to wrap it there. My name is Arman Rusta. All of my information could be found on the 7 Pillars Digital website. And it was a pleasure being here. I'll be around later if anyone has questions on the model. Thank you.
Thanks. Me?